All right. Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, we are back taking a look at the tropics. Tonight is Friday, August 27th, 2021. This is your evening tropical update, where we continue to watch what is now Hurricane Ida, currently over Cuba, had made landfall about an hour ago as of this recording, with maximum sustained winds of 80 miles an hour, a Category 1 hurricane set to move into the Gulf of Mexico in a couple hours and likely intensify, clear through landfall into southeast and south central Louisiana by Sunday. So if you've been following along, you kind of know what we've been talking about the last couple of days. We're going to quickly recap, what we saw this afternoon, what's going to happen the next day or two, but we're going to try to get mostly the impacts tonight because the impacts are becoming the big deal, and there's going to be some pretty extravagant major impacts with Ida. So Hurricane Center's evening forecast, 5 p.m. advisory. We could probably go to the 8 p.m., but there's not going to be anything really new or exciting here. You see the storm over Cuba down there in south western Cuba. It's going to be a speed bump. The storm's just going to have to hang out for a couple hours. It's not a big deal. Hurricane warnings are the big story tonight. They have been moved up from hurricane watches this morning to hurricane warnings. Those warnings are in effect for the coast of Louisiana, from Intracoastal City to the mouth of the Pearl River. This includes Lake Pontchartrain, Lake Maurepas, and Metropolitan New Orleans. And tropical storm warnings extend from there, mostly through the Mississippi-Alabama border, and then back off to the west to about Cameron, Louisiana, from Intracoastal City to Cameron. So you can see the tropical storm warnings in blue, outlining the kind of edges of this, and tropicals and hurricane warnings in the red, where the worst effects are expected to come in and onshore. Hurricane Center's overall track theory has not changed. The cone has mostly stayed steady. There's little windshield wiper, a little bit east, a little bit west, but generally Morgan City to Grand Isle is essentially where we think this is going to come in. Probably the eastern edge of Vermillion Bay to Grand Isle is really where that eye is going to come ashore. But that's not where the effects are going to just be. But that's where the eye, we believe, is going to come ashore. And there's been some good evidence that that's probably pretty well set. Okay, so Ida did make landfall in western Cuba at 7:25 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, about an hour since then when we're recording this. Again, with 80-mile-an-hour sustained winds, you can see here from Jack Sillen on Twitter. Nice eye feature with this storm. One of the big things we saw today is the eye definitely got itself together. This thing became a hurricane right after we stopped recording this morning, as it approached the Isle of Youth and became a Category 1 hurricane. The hurricane hunters found a nice path. They saw like half an eye wall. And since it's moved over the Isle of Youth and into western Cuba, Isle of Youth, this island right here, it has built a full eye. This is very much not good news because remember we talked about yesterday. We said, okay, well, if we've got a kind of a sloppy, still getting itself together tropical storm that exits into the Gulf of Mexico and only has a limited amount of time over warm water, and if it has to spend even 8 hours putting itself together and finishing all this crap it just took care of right here, it limits the amount of time it really can strengthen because hurricanes have to be structurally sound to strengthen for the most part. Yes, they can strengthen, sloppily, but that only works to a degree. To get an extreme hurricane, you have to have it strengthening and already put together and have an eye and have a line vortex. Ida's done that today. She did that ahead of schedule. So now you're putting an organized Category 1 hurricane to the Gulf of Mexico, and it's only go time from here. Now, we've talked about this a lot. I do want to mention the Hurricane Center's evening intensity now is up to a 140 mile an hour. Hurricane Center firmly into Category 4 now with this storm. I mean, we're 2 days out and they're already at Category 4 intensity. We've talked about this a lot, so I don't really want to go too much more into it. But generally speaking, everything is going right for Ida. We have this upper level low over the Gulf of Mexico. This continues to back away. You have beautiful outflow channel to the north, beautiful outflow channel to the south, and Ida's upper level winds are now advancing into the Gulf of Mexico, indicating that the storm is not really being bothered by wind shear. The only hope we really had was Nora, the tropical storm, almost a hurricane out in the eastern Pacific. Some of these winds may come across, but I just don't think it's going to be enough. Ida is going to have no issue with upper level winds, as GFS shows through its landfall. Beautiful outflow canopy aloft throughout the landfall. No troughs, nothing coming in to start disrupting it. Moisture not going to be a problem. Again, the GFS shows this well throughout landfall. Just huge slug of tropical moisture wrapped up in this thing. Dry air just pushed back at the gates, not allowed in. No big deal. And the oceanic heat content map from the University of Miami, again, showing this system moving over, Cuba and the landfall something like this, and you just draw it right over the loop current of the central Gulf of Mexico, where some of the deepest, warmest water a hurricane can possibly find in the basin is right here. Especially when it hits here, it's going to explode in intensification because this is deep, deep, deep warm water. Hurricanes like warm water, but what they like more is warm, deep water. So if the water's deep, no matter how much water they pull and suck up and do their thing, there's just more fuel waiting. So this stretch, this probably 8-hour stretch the hurricane goes over, this is going to be it's going to be a light show when that happens. That's why the forecast intensities are essentially, just as strong as it wants to be. I mean, that's why the Hurricane Center has even been as aggressive as they pretty much can be. Intensity models have jumped up as well. Now almost all are at the top of Category 3 or into Category 4, and you can see some even approaching the dreaded Category 5. Hurricane Center's forecast is live the upper end of this guidance. This is from Sam Lilo on Twitter. He is showing you the ship's rapid intensification criteria. This is a computer model that does just hurricane intensification, and in some cases, such as the chance for a 40 knot or about 55 mile an hour increase in the next 24 hours, that is set at 22 times the normal chance for a hurricane to undergo that much intensification. These numbers are pretty staggering. They're kind of confusing, but just expect that you should not see double-digit numbers over here, like ever. So, bad news bears for that. So, again, whether it's a 3, whether it's a 4, whether it's a 5, the same sort of impacts are coming. It's some bad stuff is coming for the coast. Let's go ahead and talk about that. Let's get into the impacts. Okay, so the first one we got to talk about is the timing, because that's important. Hurricane Center does have this approaching what it looks like Sunday afternoon, but you have to remember, look at these numbers carefully. This is 2 p.m. on Sunday. Hurricane somewhere inside the cone here. 2 a.m. Monday, 12 hours later. It's not gone very far, from just offshore to just into Vermillion Bay in 12 hours, and then another 12 hours, so eventually a 24-hour period. It's just made it to the Alabama-Mississippi border. That's a 24-hour stretch. The storm will be slowing down to a couple miles an hour. It's not going to outright stall, but it is going to slow down. This, might be not the worst thing, because it may have a chance to weaken a little bit near the coast if it sucks up all that warm shelf water at the coast. It's a nice thought. It's probably not going to happen, but look at the time for the arrival of the tropical storm force winds, though, because the hurricane is just offshore 2 p.m. Sunday. That means that tropical storm force winds are going to get there sooner. Tropical storm force winds are often when preparations have ended, because now you've got dangerous winds, you got potential for trees and power lines to come down, bridges close. When tropical storm force winds are on station, you need to be wherever you're going to be. So by this map, Hurricane Center's most likely time of arrival of winds, that's by Sunday mid-morning. By Sunday mid-morning, by noon on Sunday, if you really want to push it the absolute limit, by noon to 2 p.m. on Sunday, conditions are probably going to start getting rough. The first nasty rain bands are going to start rolling ashore, and you're going to have to be where you're going to be. So preparations, guys, tomorrow is it. Tomorrow is, after that, it's just, that's it. That's all you got. So the timing is critical. Storm surge, though, is the most important factor with this hurricane. This is going to be a tremendous storm surge. The Hurricane Center's forecast graphic now shows 10 to 15 feet from Morgan City to the mouth of the Mississippi River, near and to the right of where that eye comes ashore. It's always just off to the right because the wind is pushing the water most intensely near the center of the storm. But look how far away the rises go, 7 to 11 feet over, in eastern Louisiana, right in the mouth of the Mississippi River and towards New Orleans. I mean, New Orleans is right here. You're talking about 7 to 11 foot water rise in this bayous and all these really low, swampy territories. This is going to be a tremendous flooding event in this region. Lake Pontchartrain, 4 to 7 feet. Mobile Bay, even 2 to 4 feet. I mean, this is going to be a big water rise in this region. I'm telling you, the storm surge record for the U.S. is Hurricane Katrina. She set it with 27.5 feet. Now, Katrina was her own thing. I'm not, I don't like the compare Ida to Katrina or compare Laura to Ida or Laura to Katrina. I don't really like that game too much, but I will say that just illustrates this is the most vulnerable place in the United States for storm surge, is right here in the Gulf Coast, and you're about to put a major hurricane in here. This is the most important thing, because the water, the storm surge, and the flooding rain is what kills the vast majority of people in these storms. If you were at the coast tonight, you've got to get away from the coast. It is if, no ands, no buts. I don't care if you have to start walking. Just get away from the coast, because this kind of water rise is unsurvivable. It is a catastrophic water rise that you cannot survive, and especially these marshy, swampy bayous, this water is just going to go and go and go for a while. It's incredibly dangerous. Storm chasers don't even come down here. Your Reed Timmers and ice cyclones and those kind of guys, they don't even go down this far. They're going to stay up here somewhere. They're probably going to be up here by New Orleans or something. They're not going down here. This ain't a place to be, I promise. So storm surge again, a big threat and a big threat away. You're going to have this big fetch of winds from Ida as she comes in, so you're going to have a big water rise here to the east. I hope New Orleans' levee system is ready because not only do you have the coastal flooding event, you have this coastal onshore wind pushing water trying to leave from the Mississippi River back up in there, but you've got a hell of a lot of rain coming. You're talking about anywhere from 10 to 15 inches of rain, and in a lot of cases more than that. Anytime you look at a rainfall map from even Weather Prediction Center, this is the WPC's official forecast. This isn't a computer model guessing. This is the best forecast for rainfall through Thursday of next week. So through the landfall, even a little bit beyond, 15 inches of rain in some locations, probably 15 to 20 inches. I mean, you're going to have the storm slowing down and turning. So the right front quadrant of the storm, where the heaviest rain is going to be, and the bands that can easily pick up moisture and take them on shore, are going to batter you for longer than normal. If the storm was going off to the west towards Texas, you would have a lot less numbers in this, but because you're turning, you're really kind of exacerbating how long the storm is over you. It's probably going to be over you for the better part of 18 to 24 hours. And this is going to lead to some pretty incredible rainfall totals. Again, a foot for a lot of folks, pushing 2 feet. And anytime you see a number on this map, wherever you might happen to be, and tropical cyclones especially, you can get up to double what you see on this map. So some poor soul somewhere in southeast Louisiana could get up to 30 inches of rain. It's not out of the question. Maybe 30 might be a little high, but like you could be well over 2 feet. I mean, it's going to be a colossal amount of rain. It's not going to have anywhere to go. All of the storm surge going to be pushing up into the coast. That water's not going to be able to drain. You've already had a couple inches of rain today and yesterday as that little low backed up over you out ahead of this storm. The flooding is going to be a really big problem, and it's going to really tax the drainage systems in this region. You're going to have very serious to probably life-threatening flash flooding occurring in this area. It is going to be as serious can get. I really don't like to just grandstand and go crazy with it. It's going to be a lot. And also look at the totals going into Mississippi and Alabama and even in Tennessee. You're talking several inches of rain. And again, oh, you see, I'm up here in central Mississippi, 6 inches, that could be a foot. Oh, I'm in Tennessee, 4 inches, well, that could be nine. I mean, 4.5, that could be nine. I mean, Western Tennessee just got hit with a bad flooding event not too long ago. So don't think those kind of things can't happen in smaller micro scale environments. And because we can't really predict that fine, you've got to be ready to think, okay, well, I could get double whatever I see on this map. So keep that in mind. We'll go ahead and over to the wind gust forecast. Again, this is going to be a little more subjective. It just depends how strong Ida gets. Assuming we go into Category 4, this is a decent representation. This is the European model. It's low on the west end of the guidance, but it does show it pretty well. It shows the quick succession from, a strong tropical storm to bona fide hurricane conditions. But, you're talking about 124 at the coast, 150s offshore. I don't really want to say a specific number, but I'll tell you this. Anything over 100 miles an hour, really 120, no one really knows. I compared it last year to Laura when we were talking about, oh, is she going to be 140, 150, 160? If you touch a hot stove and the stove is 500 degrees or 600 degrees, you don't know the difference. You just know it burned the absolute piss out of your hand. That's what you should think about with this kind of wind. Anything over 120, from the top end of Category 3 and beyond is just terrible. It's all terrible. Yeah, there's some differences, but for the large part, there's not a lot of difference. But I'm telling you, wind is bad. But I mean, even in the worst hurricanes in U.S. history, say the Labor Day hurricane in 1935, it hit the Keys. Survivors had their clothes sandblasted off their backs, but they survived because they were out of the water. So while the winds are incredibly important, they're going to cause massive power outages and destroy structures, etc. I know. But the wind is less of an issue than the water is. So make sure you're paying attention to both those things. But understand water is the vast majority of deaths in these storms. It's not wind. It's only about 10% or so are directly wind-related deaths. I do want to point out, though, that wind gusts are going to carry pretty good ways inland. Look how far these go inland. I'm going to catch this model up to Thursday. Hurricane force wind gusts into a good part of Mississippi. Strong tropical storm wind gusts are into parts of Alabama, Tennessee, northern Mississippi, Arkansas. A lot of nasty wind is coming for this. Little trough's going to pick her up, and you're going to have a lot of nasty effects inland. We always say that because everyone thinks, oh, well, the coast, and then we're not going to worry about it, whereas you need to worry about it because inland is going to be a big problem too, and this is going to carry likely through I think it kind of carries to the mid-Atlantic states, yeah, and then it kind of exits. So a lot of big weather coming to the southeast this week as Ida moves in. So Anyway, guys, that's what I got for you this evening. I also want to mention the tornado threat for real quick. Storm Prediction Center not really high on it yet. They're giving it another day, but tomorrow we'll probably get a better idea from the experts on what the tornado threat is. But Gulf Coast systems can produce a lot of tornadoes, so definitely keep that in mind. And final thing I'll leave you with, final thing, historical hurricane tracks, category 4s or 5s in this region within 60 miles of where the best guess of landfall is. Really, there's a couple big ones back in the 1800s and early 1900s, but of recent, Betsy in 1965 is probably the last storm that could even compare to what Ida might be. Katrina and Camille, of course, are the two of record, but they hit over by Gulfport and areas off to, to the east. They were kind of to the east of New Orleans, and it kind of created a different situation for this part of Louisiana. But you're going to get it more directly this time instead of indirectly. So this region, you really haven't had a hurricane like this since 1965. So make sure you're paying attention and make sure you're ready. Andrew was pretty bad, 92. I'll give you credit for that. Andrew was a category 3, but it was a weakening category 3. Ida will be a very strong category 4 at least, if not higher. So please keep that in mind. And if you got an old timer that's like, oh no, I'm not leaving. I lived through whatever. It's been a long time since you've seen anything like this. Period in this region. So what I got for you guys this evening. We'll have a new update tomorrow morning. Going to be pretty important to see how fast this thing goes off. But the answer is probably a lot. So we're going to keep tracking it through landfall. So until then, guys, thanks for watching. Have a good one.